Hey everybody, it's the Sheriff Tree Fitty. Welcome back to another GLC review. Today we're looking at Twilight Masquerade. It's just around the corner. So, just a reminder for how I do this. I'm only going to go over the Pokemon I think are worth going over, but if there is a Pokemon in the set that I missed, then feel free to let me know in the comments, and I will let you know my thoughts on it. So, and then at the very end, we will go over my rankings of each type in GLC. So, let's get into it. First up is Volbeat. So Volbeat, for one colorless, says if you go first, you can use this attack during your first turn. Search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. This attack is awesome. Grass loves setup Pokemon, and you get to use this on your first turn, so this is like the best starter. I think I might play this over Cricketune. Honestly, like being able to do this first turn, so good. And then its second attack actually has a lot of synergy, because for another energy you do 20 damage, but if Elumise is on your bench, it does 60 more, so 80 damage turn 2 is pretty good. And sometimes you will want Elumise, so which we're going to talk about in a second. So Volbeat I think is very good, very good setup Pokemon. People play these kinds of setup Pokemon anyway, but being able to use this on your first turn is like so good. So it'll help you not get donked. So I'm going to give Volbeat a 4. So next is Elumise. So for one colorless, you can use this attack only if you go second and only on your first turn, but you shuffle one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and all attached cards into their deck. This can be really good, especially if your opponent like did not set up very much and they grab like the one Pokemon they want and put it onto their bench, and then you just say nope and put it back. I think this is pretty great. I would play this alongside Volbeat. I don't think it's as good as Volbeat, but still, I think it's still pretty good. I'm gonna give it a 3. So yeah, next is Thwackey. Okay, so in the set we've got the new Festival Lead ability synergy going on. I'll express my thoughts on them here in a minute. But Thwackey has an ability, Bang Bang Drum. If your active Pokemon has the ability Festival Lead, you may use this ability, search your deck for a card, and put it into your hand. So extremely powerful ability, but very specific. In a Festival Lead deck, this card is amazing. You're definitely playing this. Outside of that, this Thwackey is not very good. So I'm gonna give it a 3, just because. Well, okay, it's a 4 in if you're playing a Festival Lead Pokemon, but other than that, I think it's a 3 or a 2 if you're not playing Festival Lead Pokemon. So, okay, next is Diplin. Okay, so here we go. Festival Lead has the ability, if you have Festival Grounds in play, which is a stadium, this Pokemon may use an attack it has twice. So, and then its attack for a single grass is doing 20 damage times the amount of bench Pokemon you have. So without Festival Lead, you're doing 100 for 1 energy, which is okay. If you do have Festival Grounds, you are doing 100 damage twice. There's a difference between dealing 200 damage and doing 100 twice, because if you knock something out, you get to attack a new Pokemon. So this is fine. My opinion on Festival Lead attacks is you can't, the way it's worded, you can't use TMs with these Pokemon. If they were able to use TMs, these cards would be insane. They would be ridiculous. But you can't. So this attacker is fine. Like I said, but the TMs are a shame. So I'm gonna give it a 3. Just as good as other options, I guess. So play it if you want. But you do have to play Festival Grounds in the deck. So, okay. Next up is Iron Leaves. For 3 grass, you're doing 100 damage, but it's a revenge attack, so if your Pokemon were knocked out by damage, it does 60 more damage. So 160 for 3 is very good. If you are playing it in the Rillasaur build, then this is very easy. So I think it's a pretty solid option in that deck. That deck seems to already have Pokemon that are doing about the same amount of damage, so I'm gonna give this a 3, maybe a 4, but it is a solid pick for sure. And then lastly, for grass, we're going to look at Sinistra. Sorry. So for stage 1, 70 HP, 1 grass, you can put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like, but we're here for the second attack. For 1 single grass energy, 70 damage, discard up to 3 grass energy cards from your Pokemon, and it does 70 damage for each card discarded in this way. So, extremely great in a Rillaboom deck, because you can just pump out the energies, and you're hitting for 210 for a single energy. That's like really good. You don't even have to do 3. You can just do 2 and do 140, which is also very good. So I think this card is very good. I will give it a 4. That'll do it for grass. Next up to fire. Spoiler alert, it did not get very much love. But first up is Infernape. Stage 2, but has the ability, once during your turn, you may attach a basic fire or fighting energy, or one of each, from your hand to your Pokemon in any way that you like. So, energy acceleration is always good. We already have Charizard, which is energy acceleration in a way. I think doubling energy is stronger in most scenarios, because fire, actually, I don't think it struggles too much with acceleration, because it has things like Blacksmith, Welder, Mela on top of Charizard, so I don't think Infernape is super necessary, but I still think it is a very good card. And its attack is also quite good as well, if you need to attack with it. So I'm going to give Infernape a 4. Still a really good option for acceleration, but I don't think it's super necessary because of Charizard. If Charizard was not a thing, I think this card would be a 5 for sure. So, alright. Next up, Darmanitan. So stage 1 for 3 fire at 210, and it does 70 to itself. I do want to point this out in a Charizard deck because this would be 210 for 2 energy, which is pretty good. You're overkilling most things. So there's that. But very good at just blowing something up, so I'm going to give it a 3. Then we have Chandelure. Stage 2 has the ability, once your turn, you may use this ability. Each player draws a card. Now, I think this is pretty good for fire because I think it struggles most with consistency, even though they have Macargo. But it does have synergy with the attack, and it does 30 damage times the amount of cards in your opponent's hand. So the attack does punish your opponent for the ability, and they don't have a choice. They have to draw the card. So you're just boosting your damage, but you're also giving them a card. So it's, I don't know. It is interesting. I'm gonna give it a 3. It is a cool card. I'm a fan of Chandelure, so okay. And that's it for fire. Unfortunately, they didn't get much, and they need love. So okay, on to water. We have Poliwrath. Super cool card. So stage 2, right? First attack, they're asleep, whatever. But for double colorless, it does 120, which is great, and you can do 120 more. If you do, you shuffle this Pokemon and all attached cards into your deck. In a hit and run style deck, I think this is pretty good. You could like put up a Robo-Sub or like a Clefairy doll to the active, when you just take out a huge knockout. So that seems pretty fun. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I would keep an eye on this one. I'm gonna give it a 4. I think it's pretty dang good, and 170 is a decent amount of hit points. So okay, Goldeen. Another Festival lead ability, so if you have Festival Grounds, you can use this. It's attacked twice, so for 2 energy, you're doing 10 damage. You flip a coin. Of heads, you discard an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So if you have Festival Grounds, you can use this twice. I still don't think it's good. A coin flip sucks. It's doing no damage. It's a little disruptive, but yeah. You can't even play, what is it, like Glenwood Forest or whatever to re-roll because you have to use Festival Grounds. So I'm going to give this a 2. I do not think, I think it's not very good. Just too situational. So next is Frostlass. And this card is super interesting. So it has the ability, during Pokemon Checkup, you put a damage counter on each Pokemon in play with an ability. So this is in between both turns. So like this, I think this damage actually adds up a ton. And in a spread water deck, I think this is really good. And like you don't even have to get rid of your Pokemon with abilities, because you can play things like Rough Seas and it won't even matter, and you can just time it correctly and whatnot, and like Lucamine it back into your hand or something. So I think Frostlass is very good in a spread water deck, so I'm gonna give Frostlass a 4. Next is Iron Bundle. Okay. 60 damage for 2 energy. Switch this Pokemon to the bench. If you do, switch your opponent's active to the bench, but they choose. So, I actually think this works pretty well if you're playing with Poliwrath, because they're both kind of this hit and run deck. So, I think this is a good option if you are playing Poliwrath. I would also play this card. So, I'm going to give it a 3 if you're playing it with Poliwrath. So, then we have Walking Wake. For 3 water, which we know this is doable in water, 20 damage, put up to 9 damage counters on this Pokemon. This attack does 20 damage for each damage counter you put in this way. So you can put this down to 30 HP, but you're doing 140 damage. I think this is a 2. I think your other options in water are just better. So, and you don't have to damage yourself like crazy. So, alright, and that is it for water. Okay, so next up is the Zapdos. So for 3 lightning, it does 190, and you discard all energy from this Pokemon. I think the other Zapdos is just better, and if you want to hit those numbers, just play Luxray, so I'm going to give this a 2. And then there's Emolga, which for 1 colorless energy, it does 10 damage, and it also does 10 damage to each bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. I think this is actually pretty good in a lightning spread deck. You can't play Raichu with this card, but I'm personally not running Raichu anyway after trying it out. And this guy also has free retreat, which is pretty great. So there's some people are playing a Plusle, I think it is, with basically the same attack. So I think you play this instead of that Plusle. So I'm gonna give this a 3 for lightning spread. Okay, so that's it for lightning. Next up is psychic. First we have this Clefable for 2 colorless. Metronome, you choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. So it's another Mimikyu essentially that you can use for a double colorless. So that is interesting. You could you could play 2 copycat attacks, so which could be pretty good, or completely situational. So I don't know. I'm gonna give it a 3. Okay, I'm gonna talk about Alakazam next. Super interesting that we got an Alakazam finally that we can use. But it has, for a psychic, your opponent's active Pokemon is confused. Move any number of damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon to their other Pokemon in any way that you like. Pretty interesting. If you're spreading around damage, you could set up some KOs, which is pretty cool. But then it also has another attack for a psychic as well. 10 damage plus 50 for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So, these are 2 pretty good attacks, but they're on a stage 2. and I just don't think Psychic has the room for this, so I'm gonna give Alakazam a 2, unfortunately, but it's okay. Next is Farigiraf, and for a double colorless, it does 40 damage for each stage 1 you have in play. So in a Psychic stage 1 deck, this is pretty good. You can get some decent damage off with this, because you're already playing Malamar, you can play Xatu, and counting this, that's, 120, and then, you just need like one more or something, like Curlia or something, to start racking up your numbers. So I think it's a solid option. I'm gonna give it a 3. Next is Florges. Has the ability, once during your turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, you switch your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active and they are confused. So a free boss on a coin flip, plus confusion. But it's on a stage 2, and again, Psychic, it's hard to find the room in Psychic. So, but it is a strong ability, so I will give it a 3 if you really want to use this. Slurpuff. Let's see. Not Slurpuff. Swirlix, yes. Has the festival lead, so gotta talk about this. So if Festival Grounds is in play, you get to use its attack twice, which for a Psychic, you put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Doing this twice spreads a little bit of damage. This is not good. There are way better spread options that are way less situational. So I'm going to give this a 1. Okay, next we have Monkey Dory. The first Monkey Dory has the ability, once during your turn, if this has a darkness energy, you may move 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. I think this has a very good synergy with Giratina, actually. So that's pretty good. You can set up numbers with Tina in this. And then for 2 energy, 60 damage, and your opponent's active Pokemon is confused. This isn't super great, but the ability I think is pretty good. So I'm gonna give this a 3. Maybe even a 4. Good for spread. Then we have Fezandipity. Has the ability, if it has a darkness energy attached, if damage is done to this Pokemon by attacks, you flip a coin if heads prevent that damage. So the same ability as Dragapult, but on a basic. And then it has, for 1 Psychic, 30 damage times the amount of energy attached to this Pokemon. You're probably going to have a darkness energy attached too, so you're at least doing 60. You can add a couple more energy in Psychic with Malamar and Xatu, whatnot. So I don't think this is that bad, and the ability is pretty cool. So I'm gonna give it a 3. You really have to pump energy on this thing to make the attack worth it, but the ability is quite nice. So definitely consider this. Alright, that is it for Psychic. Next up is Fighting. We're going to talk about Sandslash. It is another Earthquake attacker, which does have synergy with some other attackers, including one we're about to talk about. So for 2 energy, it does 120 and then 10 damage to each of your bench Pokemon. So a pretty okay attack. Donphan is doing the same exact attack, but for 1 energy. But this is Sand Slash, so he gets a 5. So next up is Hisuian Arcanine. So for 0 energy, free attack, 30 damage. If your bench Pokemon have any damage counters on it, 90 more. This is very easy to do in fighting, so 120 for free I think is very strong. So I'm going to give Hisuian Arcanine a 4. I still think I'm playing the other Hisuian Arcanine in if you're playing Colossal and Garganacl. But if you're not playing those, I think this guy is very good. Even if you are playing those, this is still a good option. So, yeah, 4. Okay, next is I want to talk about Hawlucha for 2 fighting energy, 50 damage if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, 90 more damage, so 140. 140 for 2 is pretty good. Searchable with Poffin. You do need probably some acceleration with this guy. So great in Garganacl and Colossal. So I'm gonna give this guy a 4. Very solid. Okay, now we have Ting Lu. So for 1 fighting energy on a basic, if there is a stadium in play, this does 30 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon and 30 to the active. Then you discard that stadium. So 30 spread is awesome. I think this is really great in like the Hitmon deck. I think this is a good option for that. Some people are already playing the Sandagast. This is basically the same exact attack. You just need a stadium instead of being on a stage 1. So I'm going to give this guy a 4. Now, Okie dokie. Alright. 130 HP basic has the ability, if it has any darkness energy attached to it, it gets 100 plus HP and its attacks do 100 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Then its attack for 2 fighting does 70 damage. So really, you want to just read this as for a fighting darkness, you're doing 170 damage with no drawback on a basic that has 230 HP. This guy is stupid good. Like, why are you not playing this? Okay, this is definitely a 5. The first 5 of the video. This guy is very, very strong. And that's it for fighting. Okay, so next is Dark, and they did not get much love at all. Today, the only thing we're talking about is Scolipede. Stage 2, for 2 energy, you put damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon until the remaining HP is 10. So I think this is pretty good in a Poison Dark deck, because you can just set up knockouts with this guy. So that's cool. But outside of that, this guy is not very good. So the only Dark one I'm giving a 3. And then this Brute Bonnet is you're not gonna play this in Scolipede, but Brute Bonnet is a 2. I think the other one is just better. So alright, on to Metal. We've got Aggron, which I'm happy about. 180 HP stage 2 beefy boy for 1 metal. Does 50 damage for each of your Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. So if you can spread damage to your bench, this is... Oh wait, yeah. If you can spread damage to your Pokemon, then this attack is very, very good. But its second attack for 3 metal, 120 damage. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 50 less damage from attacks. So if you are using this with the tanky tools and stadiums that Metal has, I think this is a really great option. This guy is tanking hits. So in a tanky style metal deck, I think this is a pretty solid option for sure. I'm gonna give it a 4 for the tanky build of metal. Next is this Heatran. Has the ability, if it's in the active and is damaged, the attacker is burnt. Then for 3 energy, 50 damage times the amount of metal energy you discard. So you're probably doing 150 with this guy for 3. I think the other Heatran is just better, so I'm gonna give this guy a 2. And that's it for metal. Now here we go. Okay, so this is the big talk about the set. So Applin, we finally have a Dragon Applin, which unlocks the ability to play Flapple in our decks. Which Flapple, for 1 energy, does 50 damage times the amount of your opponent's Pokemon that have abilities. So very, very great. So Applin, I'm giving a 5 just because it gives you the ability to play Flapple. So very, very welcome in Dragon decks. Along that, we have Dracloak. Has the ability, once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one of them into your hand, the other at the bottom of your deck. We finally have more draw in Dragon, which is very much needed and welcome. I think every single Dragon deck is playing this, so I'm giving it a 5. And then there's Tatsugiri. Has the ability, once during your turn, if it's in the active, you can look at the top 6 cards of your deck, reveal a supporter there, and put it into your hand. This guy is also just so good. Searchable with Poffin. It's on a basic, so you can possibly play this instead of Dragonite, or play a different Dragonite, or play both and just add to your consistency. This guy is very good. Very much helps the consistency of Dragon decks. I'm going to give this guy a 5 as well. Very strong additions for Dragon, which I'm a fan of. And then there's colorless Pokemon, and there is nothing to talk about here. So let's go on to the trainers. Accompanying Flute is an item where you reveal the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck. You may choose any number of basic Pokemon you find there and put those Pokemon onto their bench, and then they shuffle the rest of the cards. This just helps your opponent set up. Like, this is almost like never good for you. This card is so bad. So this is a 1. Do not play this card. Bug Catching Set is an item. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may reveal up to 2 in any combination of Grass Pokemon and Grass Energy you find there and put them into your hand, then shuffle the rest into your deck. I think this is a very, very great card for Grass decks, so I'm going to give this a 5. Very, very good item. Okay, up next we have Caretaker. Draw 2 cards. If you drew any cards in this way and Community Center is in play, which is a stadium, shuffle this Caretaker into your deck instead of discarding it. This is a 1. Do not play this card. Okay, next up we have Carmine. If you go first, you may play this during your first turn. That's the catch. Discard your hand and draw 5 cards. So slightly worse Professor's Research, but you get to use it on your first turn, so that's pretty good. That might be good enough to play this over Research in some decks, so I'm going to give this a 4. I think this is pretty good. Draw from a supporter on your first turn seems kind of good. Okay, here's the stadium I was talking about, Community Center. Once during each player's turn, if they played a supporter, they can heal 10 damage from their Pokemon. This card is trash. I think it's a 1. This is not a good card. Maybe a 2. I don't know. If you want to heal your damage from your Emolga or something, I'll give it a 2. Next up is Cook. Heal 70 from your active. Pretty solid heal from a supporter. I will give this a 3 if you are running a heal kind of deck. They reprinted E-Hammer, which is great. Festival Grounds. Each Pokemon in play that has any energy attached recovers from special conditions and can't be affected by special conditions. So this is the stadium you are required to play in Festival Lead decks, and I think its effect is terrible. So I think it's unfortunately I think it's a 2, but you're required to play it in your Festival Lead decks, so yeah. If they have better Festival Lead Pokemon in the future, maybe, but yeah. Okay, Handheld Fan is a tool. If the attached Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged, move an energy from the attacking Pokemon to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. This is this is annoying for your opponent for sure. You can, if you have this on a really tanky Pokemon already, you can really disrupt your opponent's energy counts and whatnot. So I think it's all right. I'm gonna give it a 3 as a good disruption option. Next is Hassle. It is a hassle to play this card. You can play this only if your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn. Look at the top 8 cards. You keep 3 of them in your hand, shuffle the rest. With this kind of effect, would much prefer to play Teammates or Raihan or Mela. I think all of those are just better in this case. It's fine, but I think the other options are just better, so I'm going to give Hassle a 2. Jamming Tower is a stadium. Pokemon tools attached to Pokemon in play have no effect. If you are worried about tools, this is pretty good. I will give it a 3 if you're playing a deck like that. Kieran is a 1. You're never playing this because it involves V's. Lana's Aid. Put up to 3 in any combination of Pokemon that don't have a rule box and basic energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. So it's basically a Super Rod, but it goes to your hand instead of shuffling. I think... shoot. What's her name? The supporter that puts 2 Pokemon and 2 energy into Clara. That's it. Clara, I think, is just better in most cases than Lana's Aid. So I will give Lana's Aid a 2. Because I think Clara is just better. Love Ball, search your deck for a Pokemon with the same name as one of your opponent's Pokemon in play. This, like, 5% of the time, probably even lower than that, maybe more, I don't know. 5% of the time, this is great the other 95%, this is a dead card in your deck. So I'm going to give this a 1. Not good. Okay, Lucian. Each player shuffles their hand and puts it at the bottom of their deck. You both flip a coin, and if it's heads, you draw 6. If tails, you draw 3. This can hurt you while helping your opponent sometimes. I think I would just rather play Iono or N or Marnie over this, or Roxanne even. So I don't think he's very good. I'm going to give him a 1. Then there's a Lucky Helmet. We already have this, but I will give it a 2. Just there are better tools you want to be playing. If it's damaged, you draw 2 cards. So next up is Perrin. You reveal up to 2 Pokemon in your hand and put them into your deck. If you do, you search your deck for that many Pokemon and put them into your hand. I think this is actually pretty good in a Pokemon heavy list, where you kind of maybe sometimes have the wrong pieces in your hand. So I'm going to give Perrin a 3. Solid consideration for Pokemon heavy decks. Then there is Rayfort. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Discard any number of cards you find there. Put the others cards back in any order. This card is unbelievably bad. Don't play this. Just play Battle Compressor. This is a 1. This is a -5. Okay. And with that, we have a single new energy called Boomerang Energy. It provides 1 colorless. If this card is discarded by an effect of an attack used by the Pokemon this card is attached to, attach this card from your discard pile to that Pokemon after attacking. So it's kind of like Recycle Energy. So if that Pokemon is sticking around, then this is pretty good, actually. I'm gonna give this a low 3 because I think Recycle is just still better in most situations. But going directly back to the Pokemon is nice. That's gonna do it for all the cards I want to talk about in the set. Again, let me know in the comments if I missed one that you wanted me to talk about, and I will have that discussion with you in the comments. Now I'm going to go to my type ranking after this set comes out. I still have colorless at the very top as the best, even though it didn't get any new tools to use. I still think it's the best. Close behind that is Psychic. A lot of people think this is the best type, and I can totally understand why you think that. And then Dark and Lightning just behind that. In A tier, I have brought up Dragon with all the new things it got. I think it will make Dragon decks way better, and I'm really excited to see that. After that, I still have Metal, Grass, and Water in the same spot. Still very, very solid options. In the B tier, I do have Fighting and Fire. I think they are the least consistent out of all the decks, and they need something more. I just don't know what. Fighting did get Okidogi in this set, which is super great for that, but still. And then, of course, in D tier we have Fairy, because Fairy. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.